Welcome to the Hearse Whisperers, where we give you an inside look at life in the slow lane and talk openly about the death care industry. We're here to pull back the curtain on what really goes on behind the scenes in funeral service, from the heartfelt to the humorous, the traditional to the taboo. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there, but the more we talk about death and grief, the more empowered we become. We're glad you found us, so please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop. Welcome back to the Hearse Whispers. Today we're going to take you behind the scenes in the day of a life of a funeral director. We're going to start off with what happens when we get that first call that someone has passed, and we're going to take you through the steps of what's entailed with that. And along the way, I'm going to be asking Dave some questions about how it differs from when we get that call today to how it was some years ago and what the differences are. Days gone by. So let's start with it's today. It's right now. We received that first call from the family reporting their loved one has passed. And we get on the phone with them. And of course, we need to get information, but we also need to really hear the person, listen to them. They're oftentimes upset, obviously, and it's hard for them to tell us what they need and what they want, but we developed our skills and our way of talking to people over time. So from a perspective of now, what are we doing? We're getting as much info as we can, and our brains are already going. Right. So what's in your brain at first call's happening?
Sure.
You're taking the info.
Morning.
It's 2 a.m. Yeah, I like that. It's usually 2 or 3 a.m. You are jolted out of a sleep. And not only do you have to kind of get yourself together and think, but you have to be really focused, right? Because the person on the other end is very unfocused.
Yeah, they're very scattered.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it's 2 a.m., Dave. You jump out of bed. You get you're ready to go.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
You call, well, first, like you said, you really have to just clear the cobwebs, take a minute.
Yes.
And then you call the family, and you have called into, I've heard it called the family tornado, because no matter how calm, like for instance, if somebody's home and they're dying for a year at home, it's a whole different world the minute before they die to the minute after they die. Because then decisions have to be made. You talked about decisions for a month or two.
Yes.
The person passes away, then the decisions have to be made. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
So it's your job, like you said, to call and be the voice of calmness, the voice of reason, as far as you can be reason, as far as you can do that. I know we always ask people what happened, because that's just a great question, because they'll tell you, they'll describe whether it's an illness, whether the person collapsed or there was an accident. You find so much out just the first minute or two, and then you go from there. You can ask them if they have any idea what they might want to do as far as a funeral is concerned. They'll say, well, so and so, he always wanted cremation. You say, okay, then we're going to have a cremation, and then you construct a little bit, so when you meet them the next morning, you have things to offer.
Yes. You know where they're going and where to help lead them.
Right.
And I really like that you said you asked about what happened too, because not only does it give you good information, but it can lead the way for how much questioning you're going to do at that time. Right. If this is a sudden death, an accident, something traumatic, it's not that it's less traumatic if the person was, dying for a considerate time, but if the more turmoil, the less you want to ascertain at that time. You're just going to try to get the basics and say, we're going to talk to you in the morning.
Yeah.
We're going to give you that space.
Yep.
Right. Because there's nothing worse, I can imagine, than you're grief stricken. And here we are peppering you with 1,000 questions.
Yeah.
Right. You would just be like, goodbye.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah. So you really have to listen to where the person is, and sometimes they want to tell you everything.
Yep.
And sometimes they couldn't get off that phone fast enough.
No.
So yeah.
And you really can't take it personally.
Yes.
Even
I like that you said
even
that.
though sometimes you can't help
we do.
it.
We're kind of those people that take everything. That's how I would. Yeah.
But Yeah. And the most important thing, like you just said, the most important thing is that the funeral director has called. So they know things are going to be taken
Yes.
care of. You
Right.
know, whoever it is going to get to the funeral home. And if the person's going to the medical examiner or something like that, if there's been an accident, then they know because we explain it to them well. The medical examiner will probably take a day or so,
Hmm.
but don't worry, it's not going to be put, the funeral's not going to be put off for a week
Hmm.
because people watch TV and medical examiners on TV tend to have the people for a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that really doesn't happen.
No.
It's usually a day or two,
Day or two.
maybe three, but usually a day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So,
very quick usually.
yeah,
Um, yeah. I think that's a really good point that people know that we're taking charge of the situation, and they can
right.
feel comforted by that.
Yeah,
I think that's good. Okay, so the next step, we've talked to the family, we've determined kind of where we're going with this, and we've probably made a plan for the next morning for them to come in and really sit down and talk with us.
yeah.
So now we can't go back to bed yet because there's more to
No,
do.
yes.
So what
Always
do we
more
have
to
to do
do.
next?
Well, the next step might be saying to the family, we'll see you in about an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and they'll, because, you go to the funeral home, you call somebody, whether it's you or somebody else, and you get the car
Right.
and you bring the equipment that you're going to need.
Mhm.
And you go to the house.
Yep. The team goes.
Yeah.
The team has to
Team
go
goes to the house.
to bring the person to the funeral home.
Yep.
And that's an interesting point too. I've had people ask us, well, what happens if it's the middle of the night? The same thing that happens if it's the middle of the day, right? We're
Yeah.
going there within an hour or so.
Yep.
Someone will be there. Another important point about that is that if the death is unattended, meaning if the death is being followed by hospice, somebody's been under the care of hospice, we, the funeral home, can't come there to your home until the hospice nurse comes and they
Right.
do their certifying and pronouncing of the death. And also, even if someone was ill or perhaps the death was somewhat imminent, but they weren't under the care of hospice, we actually cannot go until the police come to the home first. And they will contact with the medical examiner and make sure that the medical examiner will release, as we call it, and be okay with us coming because there's nothing suspicious or there's nothing,
Right.
to investigate. So I know I've gotten some of those calls where the person was elderly. They may have passed in their sleep and their family is calling us, oh, can you come? And no, I'm sorry. We still have to have
Yeah.
the police come first and
It's all
and
legal.
do the
Yeah.
legal stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's good. An interesting thing to
Yeah.
know, I think.
Yep.
Okay, so now we are on our way. We are back to the funeral home. The person is with us.
Now it's 3:00.
Now it's 3:00.
3:30. Right.
3:30.
Yeah.
Now what do we have to
Well,
do? Maybe.
I think we would have spoken to the family at this point
Mhm.
and ascertained if there's going to be embalming required.
Mhm.
And if there is embalming required, no time like 3:30.
No time like the present.
So,
Mhm.
many times your day starts at 2 a.m. and you just work till 5 or 6 the next night.
Yeah. I think that that's something maybe people don't think of, right? They think it's things
Yeah.
that happen behind the scenes that you don't see, which is we don't want you to see. Like we're getting this together for you.
Yeah.
We're serving you, but you may be meeting your funeral director at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they've probably been awake
Just up the whole
since
time.
the whole time
Yeah,
and
yeah.
been working on something for your person, right? The whole time. And
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
what we do. We take you into we take them into our care, and we're with you that whole way until not only just the day of the funeral or the service after that too.
After
We're
it.
there for you
Yeah.
after that too. Um, okay, so we might be embalming. So let's just put in here why we might be embalming, right? So open casket at our funeral home, at Feeney Funeral Home, we require that for an open casket public visitation.
Right.
Of course, if the family wants a request, they would like the person to be embalmed. That's
Sure.
always obviously.
Yeah.
But we will just say that it's not required in every situation.
No.
Right. So we
No.
don't always do that. We would explain
during that first call why we might need to do it and get their permission.
Sure.
That's really important.
And there's a big difference between the first phone call and arriving at the house, because then
Yes.
they've had time to talk as a family, if whoever's there, and or if they're alone, they've had time to think. And then when we come, they're very happy to see us. You know, now that again we've taken control and things are moving, and they'll think, well, we want to wake or we don't want to wake. You know, with burial, cremation, usually you find out a lot.
Yeah,
there
definitely find out a lot
more.
Yeah.
So, and then we leave it off that we're going to need some biographical information the next day. And if they don't have it all, that's okay too. So we talk about clothes.
And I think at this point, you've also gotten a sense of family dynamics.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've talked to someone who's in charge, a spouse, a child, someone's in charge. Right. And then a lot of times you might see there's other players. There's other people who might want to be in charge too, or they don't agree. And this is all good information because that arrangement, that's all going to come out, right? So you're prepared a little bit for what does this family want? Is there dynamics in place? Are there people who don't agree? Like, you know, and you just have to navigate that. Yeah. It's hard to put that into words, right? Because it's just something you learn how to do, the navigating. Learn how to navigate. Because it's not about you, the funeral director, right? We are doing what you, the family, wants to do. So like, I've had a lot of times where people are like, well, what do you think? And you might think something, right? I always think something, but I try not to think about that, like in that way. Like it's about what do you want?
Sure.
How would you feel about it? You know, it's hard to, you have to reflect that back.
Yeah. And if you do give your opinion and they take your opinion, what if it's not really what they want?
Someone might not be happy.
And then it's your fault.
Right.
You know, I'm not being light about that. It's just, it's true.
Yeah. It's totally true.
If they're stuck between the blue casket and a red casket and they say, well, geez, Dave, what do you think? And I'll say, well, I'm a little colorblind, so I like the blue. And they get the blue casket, and in the room, it just dawns
they just
on
don't
them
like
they
it.
hate blue.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
It's Dave's fault.
I can't believe you made us get this blue casket, but I didn't make them get it.
Right. But, you know, people are looking for opinions, which makes sense. They're going through something that they've probably never done before.
Yeah.
They look at you as the expert. They want to know what your thoughts are, but you have to I think the best word is navigate. You have to navigate it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're meeting. It's the next day. We've been through almost a day already of our life.
Yeah.
We meet with the people. We've come up with a plan and we know what we're doing, but now we can't just close that folder and walk away, right? We've got more work to do.
Oh, yeah.
So now the family's left us, right? They've left us from their arrangement. Now what?
Yeah, now
there's more.
We have to order things, for instance, the casket. And I know during COVID, it was time to order things and you said a little prayer before you dialed the phone that they'd actually have the casket that the family wanted. And remember, it got to the point where we would have the family pick 2 or 3 caskets.
Yes.
And we would call the company in front of the family and say, do you have XYZ blue casket? And more often than not during COVID, they'd say, no. So you had to go to casket B. And sometimes we went through 3 caskets and they didn't have any of them.
Yes. I remember saying, what do you have?
Yeah, basically.
And what color? And it was very, oh God, that was tough.
Yeah, it was tough.
It was really tough.
And it really was. I used to feel so bad for the family, but I always felt good that I was calling the casket company in front of the family.
Yes.
Because then they knew, oh, geez, you know, poor Dave, he can't.
Right. Like this is not an exaggeration.
No.
This is
our really they can't get caskets.
Right.
So but that was the casket saga.
Yeah.
And then you have to arrange for the staff, the part-time staff to come in.
Yeah.
Which one looking at this podcast would say, well, that's easy. It's not that easy.
Could be one of the hardest parts of the whole process.
Yep. Who has an anniversary, who's doing this, who's doing that. But we get it. We make it happen.
We make it happen. And I just want to point out, if you're watching this, you might not realize that most of the people helping you at the funeral home are the part-time staff who are mainly people who may be retired from their long time job, their career, people who do this because they love it, right? They're there
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
love people and they want to help. And because it is a part-time staff and they're only coming in when they're called, right? They have to have the flexibility, but then it's like Dave said, it's like, well, who can't do it and who's away
Yeah.
and who's this. So, right, we're ordering things, we're calling staff, we're going to call the church maybe if there's a church involved. We are going to call a cemetery now if there's a cemetery involved.
Yeah.
We have to order cards, prayer cards, maybe flowers if the family asks for that. Like we are doing all these phone calls. Oh, but by the way, the phone's ringing again and it's another call.
Sure.
It's another first call. Oh,
Yeah.
someone else has passed. Like, so now pause and we have to give the family their undivided attention that they deserve.
Yep.
And all of this is spinning around and now we're in the tornado. We've taken the tornado away from the family,
Yeah.
right? But that's okay because that's what we do.
That's
we
what you do.
navigate the tornado. So, okay, we're making our phone calls and we are helping other families. And then what else could be happening? Well, maybe we have a visiting happening today.
Sure.
So now what are we doing?
Or we have a funeral in the morning and a visiting.
Ah.
So you just get very busy.
Yeah.
A million years ago, I remember learning that from the time the first call, as they call it, the first call from the family that there's been a death comes in until the burial. Now this is going back when everything was a funeral, traditional burial funeral. The funeral director put in over 70 hours just on the funeral. It's not that 70 hours passed, it's 70 hours of work
on that family.
So you would actually, what we do is we arrange for a wedding in 2 days, basically.
Yes.
All the
right.
things that you
all
do,
the moving parts.
the planning, and now we also get involved with calling the restaurants for the repast.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we had all the local menus for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at our funeral home, we have a room that's a cafe room where you can have food during a visitation or a memorial service. And so we will help families coordinate like sandwiches or cookies or something like that. So there's another piece that we've added to our plate.
Sure.
Okay. So this is a good time for me to ask you, let's go back in time now. Let's go back in time. It's 35 years ago.
I know.
Okay.
I'll go pre-beeper. That's how far back.
Okay. So right now, that's good. So let's just say, how do we normally get this call now? Right? People may ring our doorbell, but that's not so common. It's mostly a phone call.
Yeah.
And we do have an answering service that helps us overnight. So just like if you call your doctor, you get an answering service. They relay us a message. It's like a text and a phone call that wakes us up. But now, 35 years ago.
I know. 35 years ago.
What did you do? How did you get your call?
Yes. We had, going back to when I had brown hair, we had an answering service, take the calls at night, but we never had call waiting.
Okay.
That was something that you see on Star Trek.
Right.
So any phone calls at night had to be fast because the service may be trying to get you.
Oh, so you
if
had
you're
to
on
think
the
quick.
phone, you're on the phone. You had no idea if somebody was trying to call you or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, like I said, you're not really on the phone. If I was going out somewhere, like meeting some friends at a bar, I would have to call from the bar, call the answering service, and tell them I'll be at this phone number. And it's the bar phone number. So if something happened, the bartender would say,
like Dave Feeney here?
Yeah. Like on, yeah. So Dave Feeney, phone. And you go, oh, geez. So you'd get the phone and you really, even back then, you weren't comfortable calling the family from the bar.
Right,
so
of course.
You had to go find a payphone.
Okay.
Which, for you youngsters, you had to put money in and make a phone call.
Right.
That would be quiet.
So you were on some street corner.
Yep. And seeing as how there were no cell phones, I always had, like I still carry around my little pad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My little pad. And I'd write the phone numbers down. And then you'd have to call the family.
Right.
And unlike today, the families knew that it might take a little while to get back to them.
Oh,
You
Dave,
know,
I love that you said that because we live in the instantaneous society.
everything's instant. Yeah.
So even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I mean, our answering service will say that we'll get back, a funeral director will call you back in about 15 minutes. And a lot of, we do that. But like if it was 20 minutes, we may get a call from the family again saying, well, you said they'd call in 15 minutes and it's
It's
been
20
20
minutes.
minutes. And it's not like a negative on the family. It's just that all of us, are programmed today to
Yeah.
get instant results. Like
Yep.
no matter if it's like
Oh,
on
yeah.
our phone, on our like, instant. So I know I would panic too if somebody said 15 minutes and now it's 20 minutes. They must have forgotten about me or they didn't get my message. Like,
Yeah.
but that wasn't a thing then,
No.
right? You could
No.
probably stroll to the payphone and the
Well,
family
no, you
knew.
rushed, but no,
Well,
you
you did, but you
did rush.
weren't nervous.
But you
Right.
knew that you pictured the family sitting there saying, geez, they must be going to a payphone, because
Right. They
you
knew.
went to a payphone, you made the phone call, and they were always happy to hear from you.
Right.
Within a reasonable period of time. And also going back to the dark ages, the nurses were not allowed to pronounce death at home. They had to
Okay.
wait for the medical doctor to go, the
Oh.
family doctor.
Oh.
And sometimes the family doctor would take 3-4 hours.
Oh.
So,
And people were just used to that routine.
and
So
that's the way it was.
Right.
Yeah. So, we'd get a phone call at 2 a.m. Sometimes we wouldn't be going to the house till 5:30.
right.
So,
Okay. So that was a different. So do
Yeah.
you recall a time before answering service or before pagers, like the
No.
phone was in the house?
yeah.
Like
no,
how did that
no.
go?
No. Well, the old funeral home in Patterson, that was in house.
Okay.
This people lived upstairs. The Feeney family lived upstairs.
Right.
So I lived there for 6 months.
Okay. But at that time,
Before
the
I could
phone,
walk.
the phone in the residence upstairs was the same. You had a line that was the same.
Right.
So,
There'd be two phones. There'd be the funeral home phone and the family phone.
right.
And still funeral homes to this day.
Oh,
Many,
yeah.
many of them still do that.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
a good
It's
thing.
a lifestyle choice.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then one glorious day, they invented the beeper.
Yeah. So now you were out somewhere and you'd get your page.
Yep.
And kids today probably don't even know what those are.
No.
Yeah.
It just
Beepers.
and the
Little
beeper was a
pager.
wonderful thing. No longer did I have to go to the bar and give them my phone number. Now I could just go or go to a restaurant. However, the downside is you'd be having dinner or you'd be doing something. And I know the famous Feeney Funeral Home Wizards, more than one time we'd be playing a game and the beeper would go off.
Right.
And I'd have to run to a payphone and it would be the classic question, the florist wants to know when he can come tomorrow. And meanwhile, you're missing the game.
Yeah. The Wizards were your softball team. We have to
Yes,
tell everybody
yes,
that was
yes.
that's weird.
Famous
And the Feeney
Wizards.
lore we'll have to get
That
to.
could be a whole
It
nother
could be a whole
episode.
nother. We could bring on guests.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is kind of always an inopportune time
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
Because
Because
the universe does that to you.
the early beepers didn't have the phone number come up on them.
Oh, so what did it say?
It was glorious because you weren't attached to a phone.
It just beeped and you knew
you were
what?
free.
You just knew you had to call
The service
The
had
service.
beeped you.
Okay.
That's it. You had no idea if it was a death call or
The
a
florist,
florist trying
right.
to get in the building.
Right.
And then the pagers came out a couple of years later with the little window with the numbers.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the only number that would come up would be the funeral home. So,
So
you
you
still
know it's
didn't
still-
really know.
Still
But-
something.
It was better. It was just better.
Yeah.
And then they came out with pagers that were in the shape of a pen.
Oh.
Oh, it was really.
I don't remember that.
The pagers, that little pager world was great.
Yeah.
And
And then one day,
one day they came out with
cell
the
phone.
cell phone. I remember we had a cell phone that was a briefcase.
Oh yes, that's the
Briefcase
first.
with the phone.
Yes.
And you put it over your shoulder. And
Did you have like the car? Do you remember like the car
yeah,
one?
the car one too. We had that.
And it cost like $1 million when
At
you
least.
picked it up.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember one time, and it had the very primitive GPS system,
Oh yeah.
but it was verbal. You called a service, which I can't think of the name of it, and they would tell you where you were. They tell you just where your car is and what to do, and they would guide you. Oh, make a left up here, make a right, go this. And I was showing off one night with a bunch of funeral directors, and I said, "Hey, watch this." And I pushed the button, and the service came on. And I said, "Where am I?" And I think we were on Route 20, and the person said, "Heading west on Route 80." You're like,
No.
so that was the end of that.
That was into that
Yeah,
technology.
show off, fail.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to and then one day they had the cell phones, and that really changed the world. It really did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And because then you just knew, and you could also answer the phone wherever you were. You make a phone call.
Right. And I think it also changed not just everything really, but even in our business of you, like I said before, everything's instantaneous. So 35 years ago, first of all, you knew what the funeral was probably in the beginning. It was kind of the same routine,
Oh, yeah.
but you had time, right?
Yes.
Like there was time until maybe a few days until the service,
Right.
and you had a couple of days of visiting. And then the funeral, like there was a drawn out process,
Yeah,
right? People
yeah.
stopped their lives for funerals, no matter what was happening.
Yeah.
The funeral was coming up, and now we have the reverse of that, right?
Yeah,
People are trying to maybe do a quick turnaround because it doesn't fit into their life.
No.
They're going somewhere. Their kid has an exam.
Yep.
They are, busy with something at work, and they are trying to kind of fit a funeral into life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that way,
No,
right?
no.
And
The world stopped.
and now the world keeps going, and
Just
we
keeps
have to
going.
try to fit it in.
Yeah.
And compress time, and cell phones are always like, we have to email everything. People want stuff immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm used to that because that's kind of always how it's been for me. But for you, that's like a huge change from how you did business.
Seismic shift.
Yeah.
Actually, it all started, I always say this, everybody thinks I'm joking around. It started with the fax machine.
That was the downslide,
It did.
the fax
Before the fax machine, I'm old. Before the fax machine, if somebody wanted some information, you typed it up, you put it in an envelope, you mailed it, they'd get it a day or two later, they would read it, and they'd say, oh, maybe they'd call you on the phone or whatever, or maybe they would do something and mail it back to you. So once you did something,
you had a couple of days in between.
All of a sudden, the fax machine, they'd say, oh, can you fax it over? And you say, sure. And you fax it over, and then 20 minutes later, they're back, and things just picked up.
Right.
The only thing that really the fax machine did that I like was obituaries.
Oh,
You could type up an
so tell us
obituary.
about obituaries before the fax machine.
You
You
had to
would have to call and read it to them.
Yep. Read it to them. And if somebody wanted it in 5 papers, you made 5 phone calls. But that's the way it was.
You're just used to it.
But I could sit here and say, oh, you had to make 5 phone calls. I don't know what they did before people had phones. I mean, they probably had to walk it down.
They probably had to walk it to the newspaper, type it up and like hand deliver it. And then however they did.
So they would say, what do you mean you had to call in? At least you didn't have to walk in the snow or whatever they say. So now I can complain about the phone calls, but now you do everything on email. Just there it goes.
There it goes. And I can only imagine spelling things.
Yeah.
Like weird spellings, and you're spelling it, and then it's your fault if it went in the paper wrong.
Yeah.
You must have spelled it wrong.
Yeah. But there were less mistakes, I think, back then. Because if the copywriter, whoever you spoke to at the paper, they asked everything.
Right.
And especially if it was a death notice, some of them would read back the THE, and they would spell every word of a death notice.
Right.
And there was an obituary, which was free.
Okay.
The story. And then there was the death notice, which was paid.
Right.
With all the information. But the obituary usually had the information anyway. So.
Yeah. And that's something that people are moving away from now, too. With internet,
Sure.
a lot of people are using our website or other internet service for obituaries. And the newspaper it's there, but it's just not. Even in the time I've been doing this, a newspaper obituary was part of every single.
Yeah.
It would just be a step we went to. And now when I ask, would you like it in the paper?
Nope.
We'll put it on Facebook. We're going to put it online. And we don't need the paper. Who reads the paper? Nobody gets the paper anymore. You hear a lot of that.
Yeah.
So that's a huge change.
Yeah. Another big change, which you might have gone on the tail end of it, or maybe you were in it, was we were totally broadsided all the time with the attendance at wakes.
Yes.
Because there was a time when someone would pass away, and within 15 minutes, you'd have 8 phone calls about, oh, when's the wake? When's the wake? And you'd say, uh-oh. So we'd have all of our part-time staff there because we knew this was going to be
We had a
very
lot of
well
phone
attended.
calls, right? So
Right.
we knew.
Now
Yeah.
you get no phone calls because everybody's out there on social media.
Right.
Nobody calls the funeral home, very rarely. And we've had lines out the door, and we didn't think we were going to have lines out the door.
Right.
And conversely, we're thinking this is going to be really well attended wake, and nobody comes for
Right.
some reason. But we would have known had the phone
Yeah.
let us know.
Right.
So-
It's almost a good thing and a bad. It's got both double edge to it, right?
Yeah, no, it does.
It's a good and a bad.
And it does. And we're sitting here talking like it's like the end of times with communication. Like 20 years from now, you will be like me. Well, 25 years, whatever. But
Yeah.
But they're going to say, so what was it like with cell phones?
Yeah.
What did they do? What do you
Now we just hear it in our head. Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
did you do? You had
yeah.
to have this thing that
Yeah.
you carried around.
It's amazing. Technology is just amazing. I remember my Uncle Jack in the 80s, I wanted to get a computer.
At the funeral home.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen. So then Uncle Jack retired, and within a year we had a computer.
Right.
And I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, but actually it was the worst thing.
Actually, tell us how you really feel about computers, Dave.
Yeah, I love computers, but
you kind of
every
also
time
hate
they make it easier, they actually make it harder.
Yeah, it's gotten
Yeah.
a lot of it's gotten.
Remember, you used to copy and paste and throw things around the screen. Now you can't do it because it asks you all these questions. Well, you sure you want to do that? You want to do this using this application or that application? I
Yeah.
don't care. Just throw it over there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and besides, it's my computer. I want to do what I want.
That's right.
Tired of passwords too, by the way. But
Yeah, that's true. It's
Yeah.
true. Technology helps you, and technology
oh,
has its downfalls
oh,
also. Like I always say to you, I wish I could go back in time. You were like, it was so much easier in
It
a
was just
weird way.
easier.
Like
Yeah.
what we did for our business was easier, and we have to adapt now. We have to adapt
Yeah.
to that. People are changing what they want.
Yep.
And 20 years from now, what we're talking about,
be
be
ancient history.
ancient. Nobody
Sure.
will have done that anymore.
No.
There'll be something new
Yeah.
and something interesting. So I guess the point of what we're talking about now is we have to adapt and change. And also, if we just talked about our whole day, that was one little
Just
piece.
a little snippet.
And, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And for the family, the most important thing is it's kind of like when they say like the front of the house and the back of the house or on stage, right? When they come in for that first visitation period or they come in for their service, they didn't see any of that, right? They're just there. We're all
Yeah.
waiting. We're ready. The room is set up. We are,
Yeah.
here is your water. Here is your coffee. We are ready for you, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And the point is that they didn't see what we told you all about.
And regardless of what time you live in, the service and the service to the family, that's always been the most important thing, and it still is.
It still is.
But just the surrounding stuff changes.
Yeah.
Well-
The way people feel, grief, the service that we need to provide, that's all like that's never
Yeah,
going to change.
that
That's
doesn't
something that's
change.
always going to be the same.
No.
Yeah.
And I always say it used to be easier, but it used to be easier in that if there were kids in college, the college would say, go to the funeral.
Right.
Take the test when you come back.
Right.
Now, I don't know if the colleges say that, but I don't think they do now because
Yeah.
funerals now sometimes, like you said, they revolve around tests. You
They
know,
revolve
can't,
around-
it can't be Friday because our daughter has midterms or whatever. And you think,
Yeah. Well, you know what it
Yeah.
is? People are, because life doesn't stop like it used to, people have become desensitized to the whole
Yeah.
situation, I think, because services have changed in a way. There's been a rise in like a non-service, specifically with cremation, where people are like, oh, they're treating it more like it's something they just have to get done. And we always try to
Yeah.
counsel people that, which I have to say, one of my favorite things that you say is, like, if you don't have something, right, the service is for the family. I mean, yes, it's about the person who has passed, but it's for you. So you would say, well, you see somebody in the grocery store, they don't know that your mom died. and they say, "How's mom?"
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh, my mom passed away. I didn't know." Well, we didn't have anything, right? We're losing a whole piece of mourning,
Right.
and what that does to people is not good.
No.
And so I do think, like, I'm not sure exactly what the colleges do, but I do think people look at death as an inconvenience more
Right.
than in the past when it was an event that the world stopped and we have to honor this person. We have to take care of ourselves. We
Yeah.
have to be with our family.
Yep.
And we are always trying to get people back to that, or also show them the options.
Yeah.
And we can do something that fits with what you want, but let's do something.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
more, it's also for you.
Yep. And
I think
people
that's
have
really
to
important.
the world doesn't stop, like you say, and sometimes the family, you can stop it, but next week, some funerals now are a week and a half away. Yeah. 2 weeks away.
Right.
Because that's the first time the family can stop,
Like
the
gather
world.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
that's tough too. I
it's
mean,
hard.
it's tough because it makes sense that they need to do that, maybe
Yeah.
logistically or whatever's going on. But like, there's such that time in the middle. It's like
Yeah.
that zone where they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's looming, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I would imagine if you got a call 35 years ago, it was like, okay, so today's Sunday. How about Tuesday?
Yeah.
Or
It
how
was-
about, it's a couple of days, or,
Yeah.
we're just going to get things organized and we're going to be ready to go.
Yeah. In the funeral home, the directors, we actually, this might not sound right, but we ran the show.
Okay. Yeah.
somebody
Tell
would-
us that.
Well, somebody would say, I'd like the funeral Wednesday. And we'd say, we have 2 funerals Wednesday. Why not Thursday? And they'll say, okay, Thursday.
Mhm.
Now they've made all these plans before they come in for Wednesday. And a lot of times they'll say, well, it has to be Wednesday. So maybe they'll go to another funeral.
Yes. Yes.
And
We've
it's
had
not
that.
It's
Mhm.
not that they're so angry at you, but I don't know, just the plans never were made before they came in.
There's no flexibility now,
Not a
right?
lot of
It fits into
flexibility,
the
no.
schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had recent situations where people are willing, they may be parishioners at a church for years, and they're willing to just switch around.
Yeah.
Right. Because the church is not available on that day. I don't think anyone 30 something years ago would have said, well, we've been at this church our whole life,
Yeah,
baptized
yeah,
here, the whole
yeah.
thing, but we're going to go over here because they
Can't
already
do
have something. They
Saturday,
can't do
yeah.
that. Like, that wouldn't
No.
even be a thought.
No.
But our
it
world is different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot more than we're even intimating here.
Yeah.
It happens
Yeah.
several times a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it used to never happen, really.
Right.
If
A
it
non
did,
thing.
if it did, it was an event.
Yeah.
You talk about it.
Right.
But so I don't know.
Interesting.
Times have changed.
Times have changed, and so will we.
Yes. And before the computer, it was a lot easier.
That's what Dave wants you to take away from this.
Yes. It really is. But it used to be easy. But
All right. So thank you for watching us today on the Hearst Whisperers. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.